Do you want to just say something about what you brought?
Oh yeah, we brought, first off, it was really stiff. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Rhuigi Villasenor. I own Rhude, and I brought along a few of our staff, my little entourage. I thought I could be a rapper today. So. I brought everyone.
And we don't want it to be stiff, so loosen it up.
Again, I was telling her in the beginning, I thought I didn't quite have the catalog yet of my work, my body of work, since we've been up for like 3-4 years. But it's great to see that I have some t-shirts and pants and hoodies that are here, and man, I feel so blessed. But yeah, we brought some of the samples of our footwear. We're still developing in Italy. I thought it'd be kind of a nice decoration for this TED Talk that we're about to have. And give Nate a round of applause for his incredible work.
Nate, are you going to come up here and run it then?
It's running on its own.
Oh, it's running. Okay,
Yeah.
now I see.
Yeah, he's getting Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
You guys heard that?
Yeah. It's good to have visuals. Yeah. So let's just start with the usual starting point question, background. You grew up in the Philippines. Talk about when, how you first got interested in fashion or in clothing. And maybe as part of your identity growing up as a kid, your mom, all those kinds of stories.
Wait.
That's yours.
Okay.
Yeah. We do it right here.
You do it right.
Yeah.
I actually just came back from the Philippines, 4 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. It was like my first time back 18 years ago. And I'm now 27. I left when I was 9 years old. I think for every family that's from, like a sort of a third world country, they bring their kids over for better opportunities. In this instance, my parents, we were very fortunate we had, everything going in the Philippines, but again, my parents wanted to provide like a better future for me, so they moved us to the States, and my mother was making, she was a tailor, like an incredible tailor, so I think growing up I learned quite a lot, not knowing that I was just literally just hanging out with her, and yeah, fast forward to now, we have a global company, I think, that distributes to all luxury stores worldwide, and we're beating numbers, and I think considerably we're the top 3 in most of the luxury stores, battling against Yves Saint Laurent, Gucci. You think about it, all the long-standing heritage brands. And again, going back to it, I wanted to take this opportunity to speak to you guys because it's like now a crazy key point within our culture that you have access to knowledge and everything. And it's kind of an incredible moment that we're able to create a luxury brand or streetwear, so to speak, because I think the term streetwear is kind of should have that luxury connotation now, is because why would you make clothes that you don't want to wear in the streets, And I think that's kind of what it's boiled down to, is consumers are getting more educated, and you all want to invest in brands and pieces that you have a connection to. And I think what we do best within our company is kind of touch bases on kind of tongue-in-cheek cultural references, but still be hands-on with our production, development, where we communicate it, and that's the luxury of having a small brand.
Okay, you answered a bunch of different things in that, and I'm going to go back to some of those points. But
I want to stop.
No, I think it's good. I want to ask you, I want to just go to the basics. Do you know how to sew?
I do.
Yeah, because you grew up with your mom sewing.
Yes, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I used to ditch high school and learn pattern making and sewing classes. You guys are all fortunate to be able to go to university. Unfortunately, I wasn't because of just financial means and circumstances that I was in. And yeah, I learned how to sew. I know how to create patterns. We have Madison from Marquesa, who's now from Rhude.
Yeah. So how did those, when you first started, because you started when you were really young, before the brand Rhude was created, what were you making? T-shirts?
So I was, I want to say I was like 16 years old. I took every internship styling gigs I could think of. So I was like I was about 18 years old. I was styling like, I don't know, like Big Sean, Chris Brown, Tyga, all these guys, Kendrick, and I created this portfolio. And I knew that when the time would come, I would use them, you know, when I needed the help that I needed. And then I started working with Sean Sampson, who at the time was named by Ray Cobb, who was like the designer of our time. And Sean was the understudy of Kim Jones, who's creative director of Dior. So Kim was there a lot. So, you know, I learned so many different methods. I think the key point in this is like learning how to design is the most important thing, because, you know, we all can think of great ideas, but like guidance is the key to this situation, because, you know, you need the recipe for a good meal.
So what are some of the skills besides sewing, pattern making? I know you do things with dyeing and distress. And,
Yeah. So,
you know, what are some of the skills you picked up?
Yeah, so very early I knew that I needed to distinguish myself as a brand from everyone else. So I was very, very early on like this vintage kind of, again, I wanted to give an ode to California and how thrift culture and flea market is so strong. So I wanted to recreate that essence in our product, but, you know, give access to kids that wouldn't necessarily go to like a Goodwill or whatever it is that, you know, where we find our sources. And so I was able to develop a technique that, you know, I call it sun dry, because we alter like a chemical process that alters the reaction to a fabric that turns it vintage, so to speak. So it's been great, but I noticed that our competitors are catching up to it. So yeah.
So let's talk about what you think was your breakthrough moment, because you did this for a while before the brand really took off.
Yep.
It seems like Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, they coined it a lot to Kendrick, but I actually do think that it's like, you know, I never want anyone to have that like credit for my accomplishments, but, you know, with this work that I did, it was like a bandana T-shirt that Kendrick wore, and I remember he texted me and was like, I need an outfit, and I was like, well, I got the sample, and he was like, all right, let me get it. And as to any friend, you're like, all right, I got you, but to be honest with you, I had zero money with me, and I was like, look, you're gonna have to purchase it, and I think staying strong with your price point and having a clear vision is very important in the beginning.
Yeah. So how much did you pay for the shirt?
I charge them ×2, so.
Okay.
Listen, if you could Google the contracts, I could.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Los Angeles and streetwear. Los Angeles, we've been talking in the class, historically has always been associated with more casual, you know, athleisure kind of wear. So how do you see your brand fitting into that history maybe of athleisure? And then I also want you to sort of define what you think streetwear is, and if there's a difference between streetwear and a term that I've used teaching, street style. I don't know, that might be a little tricky to unpack, but.
Okay. Geographically, you know, we work a lot and we develop our fabrics and our shirtings and stuff in Italy, and we sell in Paris during Fashion Week. Geographically, I think in the past, LA has been kind of perceived as like very, very behind with fashion and all of that, but you know, now I think with the internet and Instagram, it's been more accessible than ever before. I feel like a kid from Kansas can become a star instantly. You know, I think learning how to utilize your resources now is the most important thing. And as far as California, I think that's also a reflection of our economy. It's like how people are shopping and what they're buying is all really a mirror of our economy. And right now, it's like it's going quite well. I think that people are like wanting to buy, all these things. That's why Gucci's doing so good, because they want to show off. It's Gucci, it's this, but that you have to kind of. I think it's like style projection is kind of like not even a thing for us. I think it's more of a numbers projection and like what the economy is headed to, because it dictates what people wear, I think. And fortunately enough, I think with this athleisure thing, and everyone wanted to kind of dress in comfort and still make a statement, it tied back to like California being so loose and so behind. So then we actually became ahead of this. So when, jokingly enough, that's my partner George, by the way. Jokingly enough, every time we're in Paris, it's like I don't even hear a French accent. It's more like all of my California designer friends are all there, and we're just actually the force that brings the excitement. So again, going back to when I hear like the term like streetwear or street fashion, I think back then I was so I didn't receive it quite well, because I thought it was like a barrier that was put between like kids and the bourgeoisie, or like this old kind of federation that that run the system. But I think now it's more of a compliment, because I'm able to tap into the streets better than you can, because right now I think the big houses are all trying to pinpoint every single one of my peers as to like, how can we communicate? This is the reason why there's influencers, because they want to like talk to the streets, because they're losing the communication. But should I just keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I want to.
I'm like, yeah.
Saying good stuff. In terms of, you talked about thrifting as one of your, sources or influences. I'm wondering about subcultures, because when we think about street style historically, it's rooted often in subcultural style, early hip hop even. So I'm wondering if you could talk about if there are any subcultural styles that influence you, and also thinking even about the name of your brand. Why did you call it Rhude?
Okay, to start off, I called it Rhude because we have a family tradition that every single one of us is named with an RH. So myself is Rhuigi, my sister's Roxanne, my brother's Raiden, etc. It's like we have like 40 relatives, all RHs, which is like, and I'm the only one who thought of creating a company with that. As far as the name, I was quite young, and I wanted to create a brand that that like represented who I was. And at the time, I had this kind of demeanor that was kind of rebellious, but
because to me it speaks to youth culture.
Youth culture,
right?
Yeah,
and something subversive, right?
Yes. So I wanted to also create a brand that was timeless. I think that's the reason why Supreme has lasted for, what is it, like 30 years or something, because they continuously like turn over to the youth at all, like every single generation. Like, when we're all older, like, Jesus, our kids, if I ever get that, but if our kids will like something, they'll probably dig up Supreme again and like redevelop that. But as far as like gaining sources from subculture, I always wanted to like represent something that was purely me, because now's the time to where, again, knowledge is more accessible than ever, so you can literally like pinpoint if a person's like fact checking people. It's like the easiest thing you can do now, because you could just Google it or look back at their catalog. And again, I didn't want to like use subcultures that wasn't attached to me. So like when I do skate references, it's like because I could skate, or like we do basketball references as far as our sneakers, because I play basketball. Unfortunately, I'm not like 6 anything, so I'm not gonna do anything with that. But we wanted to do like a homage to all this like tongue-in-cheek references of growing up, and like I'm not even supposed to talk about this. Like when we were designing, we were joking around about like rocket power, and like that's the side of like our conversations. I think it's more of our design process is more conversational rather than like super methodical and planned out. I think it needs to come from um, an honest place. I think honesty is what we need to bring in now within, if any of you guys are intending on creating a company or designing, I think honesty is the biggest key point to this.
I want you to talk a little bit about the process and maybe
The
your
design
team.
process.
Because when you started, it was just you, and
Yep.
maybe you would create the pattern, maybe sew a bit. Now you have a team. I want you to talk about design through production, through the labor and manufacturing. You make things here in the US, that you source fabrics elsewhere. Just walk us through like the creation of the Rhude piece.
Well, it's funny because when I started, I was like in the garage of my parents' house, and it was my sister and I kind of counting t-shirts that were like ordered and all of that. But now we have a full force team. This is part of the Rhude team. They're incredible. Scott handles almost everything. But in design process, Madison is my design assistant. She came from Marquesa, so her knowledge is incredible. Yeah, we're quite. I do this thing where I do a critique Friday with our staff, and I'm the type of creative that's not limited within my own vision. I like to bounce off of people's energy, people's ideas, and I allow my entire team to kind of contribute.
Okay.
And
So you get an idea.
yeah, we get an idea.
Talk
Well,
about it.
this is the thing. I propose, like, I challenge different theories. I challenge different, like, socioeconomic situations, and just it's a conversation, really. It's just, you know, like, you and I just talking. Like, I don't know, but like, I feel like I'm talking to you, so I'll focus on you right now. Yeah, and then it turns into like this bigger concept, and then next thing you know, we're developing the collection. We create the patterns in-house.
So you draw. Madison draws.
Yeah, we both draw, and then it turns into a tech pack. The tech packs get transferred to our pattern makers.
Define a tech pack for us.
Tech pack is like a technical guide for cutter and a sewer. Yes, like you create all of that. Now we're developing women's, so it's like such a. I mean, it's very tedious because I think the thing I find most beautiful about women's wear is like I think women are quite special, and it's like you need to create something that translates that to them. But and also like the product needs to be like a reflection of our time, but also suggestive of a new and challenging of a new like statement. So I think that's been the most challenging for us, is like how do we like take a woman that's comfortable in what she already has, like, you know, like we all wake up and we know what to wear immediately. Like, so, you know, it's funny because I was at a dinner last night and we were talking about how sorry to go off on it.
No.
We were talking about how like you wake up every morning now and you go on your Instagram, right? That's like the ultimate like first few like 10 minutes is you wake up, you may not even brush your teeth, you're like on Instagram, you know? And the craziest thing to me is like I wake up and I have like 10, 20 things being sold to me right away. And that is so scary to me because I think the world is becoming more a merchant world, and we're kind of losing this boundary of consumer to a merchant. So like that's
Instagram just created that.
yeah, it's where you can buy it. So like honestly, like take your time and like go to like a Kansas location or something, and then like you'll see a guy probably trying to sell you a candle or something, you know, because it's just dope. You know? It's like, oh, I'm in Kansas, I make candles, you know. But or like I don't know, it's just like I look at it and, you know, I have a little brother and I do all the case study on him because he's 14 years old, and he's like, I'm trying to understand consumer behavior now, because like there's only so much like prepositions you can have, and like we all have different offerings, like we all have stories to tell, but like how do you create that and I'm asking this in a way because I'm trying to find an answer too, the way we all are. I think it's like, how do you create this you choose to buy that over everything else that's being offered to you.
Right.
And I think that's like the beauty of design. And
Well, so that brings up some interesting questions about who, when you're thinking about designing, you've got your ideas, your concepts, and we can talk more about some of the ones that you've pursued where you're telling a story, but then you also have your target consumer,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so you're thinking about those in tandem?
yes.
Yeah.
So, I've been told I'm kind of like a rare artist who I actually think about business as well as like just design. I think you guys need to understand that balance is the most important thing within this, because you can pitch that curveball, but if it's not working, you're gonna have to adjust and make sure that it works. And then, fortunately enough, I have George kind of steers as if I'm trying to make a skirt for men. He's like, nah, man, that becomes a shirt, So.
So George is your business.
Yeah, who's
manager.
that guy that Anakin had that like? Obi-Wan. Is that Obi-Wan? Damn, I'm a Star Wars fan. I can't. That's not Obi-Wan. It's the guy with the long hair. That's Obi-Wan.
Qui-Gon.
What?
Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon? Yeah, that's. Is it Qui-Gon? No.
Episode 1? Which episode?
You going too crazy on me with that. You know what we should have done? We should have worn all our long coats and came in like Jedi. That would have been a statement. I would have been like.
I would have been scared.
Funny thing, I actually collect lightsabers because I do this like lightsaber fighting.
That's part of the Whoever wins the battle.
Yeah, whoever.
Yeah.
No. No.
Okay, we'll stop that metaphor. Okay, so now I lost my train, but going
It's
back,
okay.
I want to go back. I mean, I kind of am interested in the women's wear thing, but I want to table that for a minute because I do want to just make sure people understand the process. So, yeah, thinking about the concept, thinking about the target consumer, and then you put together this tech pack and you send it to the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, we build this concept, we design. Obviously, I'm kind of, again, for those who don't know me, I kind of design with like a narrative in mind, so I try to storytell through my clothes. So I think that's
Let's talk about that for a minute, and we'll go back to that.
So,
What are some of the stories?
Yeah, okay, so I think, again, like every time I speak, I want the kids to come out like with information, like every so often, like I always listen to different things, and I sit there and I'm like, that was cool, but what do I do again? And like I think now that I keep, and I do these things, and I think I want anyone that comes to listen to me to come out and understand that this isn't easy, but also understand how to do it. For me, I started with the brand, and I made quite a bit of money from just one T-shirt and 2 hoodies. I was like, oh man, I'm the honcho now. I'm about to buy a watch. I'm gonna buy all this. I bought everything that I could think of, and then I had nothing. And I was looking at like it was like $100. I was like, oh my god, like, I lose money if I spend it. I was like, okay, but having that willpower, so I created the bandana T-shirt. Fast forward, I spent all the money. I bought all the cars and watches, everything, quickly. And I was like, oh shoot, I got it. And then, oh man, you have to like finance the business side. And I was like, oh shoot, like.
Because when you sold that T-shirt, you were solo.
I was solo.
Yeah.
I didn't have a business manager. I didn't have a partner. I was just me and my desires.
Yeah.
So I made it, and I designed this one collection that it's called like Revolution, I think. It was like a project. It was just a theory I had in my mind, which was referenced heavily for the Yeezy collection. And that came about, and then I created this one collection called Sugarland, to where I gained financing from those studios, so I created a short film with that. And basically, it's just a short story of like, the kind of the common thread within middle America, and actually what I think is a true American story of like being stuck in a rural area and can't really get out. And yeah, I created a whole collection entirely based on it. It's like a modern twist on Ralph Lauren's Western Americana, but more on
But a dark
a
side.
dark side of it. And you know, a lot of it was actually personally rooted through an experience. You know, like you're young, you date people, you go through different things, and I wanted to capture that emotion rather than just propose new theories on cuts and like patterns and stuff. Like, yo, we wake up and we wear the same thing. You wear the same T-shirt, you wear a hoodie, you wear, you know, it's like you don't need to propose something so crazy. I think.
So, and the story for that was, and I'll probably get it a little wrong, but a war.
Yeah, so
veteran
like
who
it
had
was.
PTSD.
Yeah, so I used that as like a, obviously I think, you know, in Middle America, like the army is like super strong, and you know I didn't grow up in an army environment, so I use that as a reference to like as like an escape route for the guy that I used within this film, and yeah, it saved me from not having company anymore, and you know we made these like Sugarland T-shirts, a few hoodies, and it got the company running again, and George came in to help me, and now we have the Rhude that you see.
Okay. So, let's go back then to the part about giving them some information.
Mhm.
So, you produce your clothes here in LA.
Yes, we do.
You work with one factory.
We once worked with one factory, but we work with multiple now. So for shirtings, it's again, hands matter. So you have to be. Yeah, we're very, very keen on like the factories that we work with, and we try not to work with who our competitors work with. You guys are competitors, because it's a weird world in LA where, again, like it's so great that all the new menswear designers are basically all from LA, and they're awarded, and you know I think like from Amiri to Fear of God, myself, I think we're all like kind of it's like disrupting this system, but I mean we're all still learning, really. I think this is why I wanted to do this, because I'm trying to learn through this conversation, because we're moving with production on our shirtings to Italy because we want to make better shirtings. Because once we were making our shirts in LA, you come to this capacity that the hands that are offered in California, it just isn't there anymore. But from a beginning standpoint, like I even tell kids, like if you have like a tailor that you work with, like that's a man knowledgeable enough to like help you create.
Choice of using LA-based factories was about proximity, or were you conscious about labor issues?
It's a blend of both. I think the focus has always been giving the workforce in the U.S. more jobs, but also it's the means. We didn't have access to traveling, and back then, like I think. Even to some of the guys in the office, like working in Italy sounds so like impossible. But when you go to Italy, it's just the same as if it was in the U.S. So then now we're starting to think about even pulling back on some of the production. You go like with our footwear in the States, because I think like all of that, like in theory, like everyone talks bad about China and all this stuff. But I walked into China like few months ago, and it's like utopia. Like honestly, I think China is actually like ahead of the curve, but
In what sense?
in every sense, I think they just know how to produce things efficiently in a good quality, and but going back to it, I think I wanted to honor like using California within our means, and then producing that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to come in on this, like please, because they handle a lot of the production now, and we're like really hands-on with design.
Yeah.
Scott's actually the guy that like gets all the mean calls from all the production guys in the house, and then if I ever get an email, just best believe it's forwarded to Scott. So I'm like, oh no.
Scott is my point person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have anything to add to that?
I guess the best way to put it is like when you're growing so fast, there's deadlines you have to hit. You're like stuck with a contract, so it's like you have, the art is obviously like the priority here, but when you have to hit a deadline, you have to reach out to other people to get things done at a certain time.
So in terms of deadlines, we're talking about getting it to the manufacturer and then getting it to show
Yeah,
potential
so putting it on the
retailers,
floor.
Putting it on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to give you an actual breakdown on that? I would love to.
Do it.
I was like, how do I do this to you guys? I feel stiff still. All right,
No,
cool.
just do it.
Let's make it happen. All right, so this is what you do. You have to design. You have to design.
This is
Obviously,
what I can't tell them.
Okay, so
this
we
is
have-
what you told me.
we have a what? A 6-month window. We do Fashion Week every June and what is this? June and January. June and January, and then we do a pre-collection in between. Okay, so collections are based on seasonal things. I think it's a problem because right now it's cold as hell, but we're delivering like summertime clothes. I think that's the ongoing problem that needs to be talked about. Okay, but you design, you have a 6-month window in every season. Okay, but if you do a pre-collection, which is the in-betweens, it's actually the best money maker in business because not every company does pre-collections. Note that. I was like, I gotta add that. Note that. Pre-collections do really well because when everyone else is designing, you're delivering something new and offering new collections and new colorways. Usually, pre-collections are just stretched out colorways of what's already best sellers. So we design. Am I saying too much? I'm good.
No.
All right, cool. You design the collection. You sample each of the collection, and you have what we usually come from we're kind of crazy. We even design some pieces like 2-3 weeks before we show. So you shouldn't do that. Definitely not. Then you have like one leg shorter. You have to. But what's crazy if you come into this calendar, like it puts you in this kind of like treadmill that you need to like run in that pace. And I think that's actually the killer of like some of the young brands because you have to keep your business sustained and then continuously provide new propositions every season. Imagine having to like, I'm still stuck on some collections. Like this is just me free thinking. I'm still stuck on like my last collection. Like what if I don't feel new emotions for the new collections? So then that's why I designed the company to where it's based on like cultural like moments and tongue-in-cheek like conversational stuff because that to me is everlasting. But when you come from a source that you're just designing from, I want to make the collar shorter or I want to do this, like I want to do pleated t-shirts and stuff, like you're going to run out of ideas. Rather go from a source that you can continuously provide new theories without having to exert too much energy. It's like some Bruce Lee kind of to it when in design. So then after you show, your buyers come, they put in their order. We do what? Like, what's the turnaround on like the submission of orders? Like a month. Then you have the month. You have to wait for the orders to be compiled, and then a month, and then the month comes in. You have your full set of orders for the season. Then you have to produce it. If you have the capital, go ahead, great. If you don't have the capital, you're like, okay, how do I produce this? I'm not going to give you guys the answer to that because I can't give it all. Then you have to do that. And
I want to ask one question about that because so you get orders, you produce the amount of orders you get. In the Supreme model, that seems to be the sort of standard industry where there is this model of scarcity, right, where you only produce a certain amount because you keep people wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a model you follow as well?
Okay, so I actually kind of been like I did this Forbes interview where I was kind of coined for like doing this new method of commerce to where when I started the company I had zero funding, and it was how I funded the company was I proposed a new theory, the new clothes or whatever, and then I allowed my consumers to pre-buy the collection with the promise delivery, and I was able to produce that on top of making my profits. So use that.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's a scary part in that is if you don't meet the promised deadline, then you have an army and a swarm of like consumers that are like, yo, where's my T-shirt?
Yeah.
You know?
So
And even
there's shipments.
there's shipments. Obviously, I think shipping is probably one of the biggest problems we face in the beginning. You know, you can only like stay so hot for so long, but if you can't provide, you know, I think meeting the demand has been, you know, such a journey for us, and we're still trying to figure out the answer to that. But, you know, I think as far as like the company is growing so rapidly, so we're having to switch positions in so many different angles just so we can deliver on time.
And you also do direct sales.
We
through
do
your
direct
website.
sales. Yeah, we do direct sales. It's been the new kind of energy for the company because, you know, wholesale is a great business, but again, why not keep the money for yourself? And I'm just being as frank as I could be here.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well, and so what are the obstacles that come in when you're doing that kind of direct sale? Because then you have to deal with returns and you have to deal with the customers maybe.
fortunately enough we have like a 2% return rate or something.
Yeah.
It was like very low because I mean if I bought my T-shirt I'd be like. Sometimes like I get, you know, sometimes I get like kids that are like, oh my god, this T-shirt's too big, but I'm gonna still keep it, and I'm like, wow, I like that energy. That's the energy that we on, you know.
I'll go
And
into it.
I'll grow into it. So to me, it's like, you know, but I know that that's the pace that you can't live comfortably in because you have to keep it organized as much as possible, and you know I think one of the things George has taught me is delegating like tasks to people that can do it better than me. You know, I think so much of like my creativity and my personality is like I think I can do it all on my own.
Yeah.
And in the beginning it was quite tough for me to delegate, but you know I'm fortunate to have a great team. I like that hoodie. That's fire. And and to have a great team and I can't thank them enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so aside from Madison, who has fashion background experience? Anybody?
No, I think I actually don't want,
Right, exactly.
I don't want a fashion experience. I actually like love kids that have new ideas because I feel like you're constrained with this like preset thinking of how you should do things, and I don't like that. I think so much in our office is like just it's actually just joking around I think, the whole time. I think that's why I'm like it's so weird because I'm so used to like joking and I'm like should I just bust out jokes on these kids right now? Nah, if I don't make you laugh, then I gotta just like.
Okay, we have some questions. I don't want to hog you the whole time. So Eden, you want?
Hi,
I see.
thank you so much for coming and for all
Of
your
course,
time.
my
Really
pleasure.
appreciate it. So,
Keep it lean, Eden.
what?
Keep it lean.
Okay, so just
That's a
so,
slogan.
so last year I did a like consumer behavior search on like streetwear and streetwear fashion and kind of like the two different like I looked at Champion and I looked at Reigning Champ because like they kind of have two different offerings but they both offer like a sweatsuit essentially. And so I was curious to know why you know, you come from like such humble backgrounds, of course, but I'm curious to know why your product is placed at like its dollar, especially when you recognize the fact that, you know, this like whole streetwear scene, like there are so many kids that like I'm from here, so I grew up like, you know, driving on Fairfax to get to school, watching kids tent out 3 days in advance for a Supreme drop. And, like, they're, like, standing in line for other people. That's the way that they're making money. But they're also, like, kind of going in debt by trying to get the, like, hottest shoe to just feel like they fit in. So, I don't know what exactly my question is, but it's, like, I guess it's why price your product at your price
So
point.
there's like a binary world to this. You know, it's either you keep the products limited or you have your numbers or your price is really high. It's the two only ways I think that you can go about this, unless you guys have a middle answer, because I'll take you guys in right now.
I can add to it.
You want to add to that?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
It's by making everything in LA. It's not the cheapest. It's not making it in China. The materials cost. We take all that into consideration, and at the end of the day, we still have to make a profit on how much it is. So we have to increase that, but it is not cheap to make one of our T-shirts or one of our pants. So.
Yeah, I think that it's more of a philosophical question you're asking to some degree. Like, how do you reconcile coming from humble backgrounds and charging $700 for a pair of pants?
I couldn't
You
give
work
you
really
like
hard.
but I couldn't give you like a BS answer. But to be honest with you, I wanted to be part of the luxury world, and I thought at the time, to me, the answer of luxury was price. But now, as I do this, I think the real answer to luxury is experience, is honesty and experience, and like I talk about it to my friends, back then in days of our parents, like St. Moritz and going through to south of Italy was like luxury, but I think now kids are like Coachella is luxury, like Soho Malibu is luxury, or I don't know, like the ill kids party is luxury, so that's like this is the perfect time now that we're redefining like everything, we're like literally rewriting the entire like pamphlet on how it's done. So fortunately I was able to have the price point at luxury, but now it's like, to me, I could price it at $30 and I think we would still sit at a luxury standpoint, because we're proposing something completely different from what's being offered.
That's interesting. So in some ways, it's the construction of luxury.
Construction of luxury is most important now rather than the pricing.
Yeah, so.
So I am working on my Instagram as a fashion blogger kind of way, and I'm really into styling, and I stalk your Instagram account, and I think that it's really cool to have a really strong, but kind of personal brand, kind of like really stylish, to be outstanding, to be like stand out from other brands. So I want to know like what's your opinion or the entire crew's opinion of using like social medias, because like with a lot of influence in our life right now, to like how to use social media to facilitate the growth of like the sphere of influence, and how to like more people to recognize you.
I want to go against the wave and say like you don't need it, and say that you can build a company without it, but I'd be a fool to do that. I think you need to understand that time is moving rapidly, and understand that it's a free platform that you can use and reach kids in, I keep saying Kansas, but like I don't know, kid from Kansas, and like no, but we look at our customer behaviors, and it's like it's not like numbers are real. Like business is amazing because numbers are numbers. A dollar's a dollar. And like a kid is like a consumer is a real consumer. There's no like facade in this. So to me, like it's important that a lot of the customer behaviors come from Facebook or Instagram ads, and it's all like, because you have to do like database research too, is what I think we find ourselves doing like every week or two, is understanding what the behavior is and where they're finding us, because once you figure out the source, then you keep attacking. But to build anything to where it's reliant on one thing would be like the stupidest thing, and for lack of a better term, the stupidest thing to do, because you're just kind of pigeonholing yourself in one source of like a speaker, like one speaker to keep the party cracking, so to speak. Like you gotta have hella speakers,
So to piggyback on that, I'm wondering, you talked about making short films, and I watched a couple online. I couldn't find Sugarland.
I had one. That's still through Milk.
Somewhere? Okay.
Yeah, it's through Milk. I was a finalist for the London fashion film.
Yeah.
I didn't win it. No way.
But I'm wondering how important that kind of creative piece is, as opposed to Instagram, which is, maybe just an individual, kind of
photo, a collection, a curated group of images, as compared to a film where you're really trying to sort of, again, tell the story in a different way?
Well, to me, film, I think, was more of a passion thing. I do think, like, Instagram is, like, the best thing to study because, one, you know, I think designers now are more important than ever before because of Instagram. Like, you gauge into Virgil, you gauge into myself, or, like, you know, all of my peers because, like, you want to see what their lifestyle is like. And again, tying back to, like, luxury, you tie back to, like, what that experience is. And I think film and all these other, like, design outlets that I figured out was more just to honor kind of, like, the heritage of what it once was and what it's becoming. Because to me, it's very scary. Because, like, I love that, again, you can contact the kid from Kansas, but the boundary is getting thinner and thinner. And to me, that it's like going to be a bigger problem than it is as a solution because it's going to be like an overfill. And, you know.
So you guys started out with like styling and stuff like that. So I was wondering, were you like working on this brand simultaneously, or like at what point did you like decide you wanted to start a brand?
When I sold a T-shirt and I didn't have a name for it, I was like, okay, I got to make this brand. Exactly. I could like sugarcoat this as much as I could, but you know, there's no right or wrong way to enter this. It's like just get in the door. You know, it's the minute you do it, you clean yourself up and do the right business like structures that you're supposed to do, and it's kind of, I don't know. I think I have this like weird. What's that term I was saying? I have this like crazy manifestation skills. Like I don't know where. I think it's almost like alchemy in some way. Because I just like in our conversations, I just talk about. And I believe so much in energy, and the exchange of energy. Which, you know, this even right now as I'm talking to you guys, I'm getting inspired by so many ideas, so many like colors and outfits. This is. I just lost my train of thought, but yeah, I have this like crazy like alchemy sort of thing where I just like talk about it and it just happens. Like my sister we just picked her back up. This is my sister Roxy. Yeah, just picked her back up in the staff. And then yesterday I was like, you know, we're talking about because we're planning on showing our first show in June, and you know, as I talked about it like a few days ago, and then boom, I get a phone call and my answer is just right there. But again, it's just like letting you just do the work. You have an Instagram, a platform to show it. Someone's bound to see it, and if the work is great, boom, it gets to it.
So like with the rise of like Instagram and stuff, I feel like there's a lot of like different brands out there, and like everyone's trying to innovate, right? But how do you feel like appropriating and recontextualizing like imagery, icons, and logos play into like? Does that like play a huge part into the success of your brand? And does that also play like a huge part into the success of other people's brands? And like, do you feel like you have to dig into the past to like essentially innovate and move forward?
Wow, this guy.
Yeah.
Question. That's amazing. That was a big question. Okay. One of the things I live by is never ask for permission, only for forgiveness. Never ask for permission. As far as going back and digging up, yeah, absolutely. Because I come from no background, so I needed to have a foundation for me to understand how clothes were developed, where they came from. You know, it's like I was watching the Sushi by Jiro. Yeah, I think we all seen that, and you know, he talks about like you can't sell luxury if you don't know luxury. You know, and to me, I came from, you know, at one point my sister and I were living in like a corner room. You know, so to me, I needed to figure out how I was be able to sell luxury if I didn't even know what it was like. You know, so I did all the researches from the past that I could, so I could develop what it is that we develop now. And then, again, this is all dictated by like what you're trying to propose. If you're like a futurist or something, then maybe my methods aren't it. But to me, I think where we stand as a brand is like with so many different new age brands that's proposing all these things. I want to be the company that kind of honors the old heritage of what luxury once was. So like, me working with Formula One, because like none of us watch Formula One. If you watch Formula One, like come on, dude, raise your hand if you watch Formula One. That's one. Wow, that's crazy. Actually, was like I was betting that it was going to be like 10, but 2 people. That's crazy. So like, again, going into like working with Ferrari or McLaren, I want to honor those old kind of Morocco days of like Formula One and kind of re-usher that to our culture and honor that.
So I think one thing that's interesting in relation to your question is there's homage, which you mentioned
I do.
before, and that's, I feel like what you're doing with all these earlier luxury brands. But then there's the kind of appropriation moving toward critique that comes up in like the Marlboro, kind of illusions.
Mm-hmm.
So that, maybe you could talk about that a little bit too, where you use appropriation as a point of critique. Or not.
It's like the back of my head, my attorney was training me to like speak in the right way, but I'm just going to talk how I want to. That's just how I do it.
Okay.
The graphics wasn't a key point to me when I started, but it's a strong moneymaker. It's like, to me, it's the walking art. To me, it's like an extension of my canvas because I paint. I think my medium was all supposed to be fine art, but with painting, you're able to do that because you can like pull a concept and kind of recreate it in like a surrealism or whatever purpose you want it to be. But with that approach, I used that with my clothes, and in the beginning, we didn't have the system that you're supposed to do when you license graphics or when you work as a collective with a company. So I think in the beginning, this is actually a good question that I was like trying to escape because I was told not to answer, but I was like, I think going back to it is like, do it. If you get slapped on the wrist, stop. That's all it is. Like to me, one of these days, a kid's gonna find this logo or something, and it's gonna be so inspired by it, and it's just gonna do it. But to me, it's like, the beauty of our world now is like you have the access to everything, so then you can do it. But to me, it's like getting slapped on the wrist is more of a nod because you've pissed them off, And like I remember like getting this William Morris like agreement, and I was like, oh my god, like this is crazy. Like we have a William Morris like agreement, that's so fire because you can actually turn these things into like a positive change for the company. Like we're doing a starter project, and long ago we made this like bomber that has like the starter logo that has the R with the star. And I just did a little like story on it, and boom, like the attorneys were going crazy on my email, and I was like, what do I do? But fast forward to now, they're like begging us to do a collaboration, and is like completely forgotten about that. So going back to it, I answered it as saying, never ask for permission, only for forgiveness. And I think do it at your own risk. I probably should have not said that, but.
No, I mean these are things we talk about in school communication quite a bit. And I think it's also important for them to hear that when you have a big company like this, you also have legal, you have agents and managers. I mean it's a different kind of animal than the startups. Yeah, Jody.
Yeah, so kind of looking through, like being familiar with the brand for like a while, like since you were like rocking with Taz and like all the way through now, I've kind of noticed sort of like, it's been cool to see the shift over years, definitely. But sort of with this current sort of zeitgeist and climate of fashion, and with, a lot of the stuff I've seen recently, there's definitely a high emphasis on sort of recontextualization. Whether it be, you doing the Honda Racing logo flip, or like the Marlboro, or just using other similar fonts. And I'm kind of wondering how you reconcile that sort of approach in lieu of kind of emphasizing like more sort of avant-garde design practices, especially like going back to the sort of zeitgeist point, it's like obviously like Virgil is like the biggest thing right now. I mean, his whole thing is sort of the Duchamp sensibility of like, I'm gonna kind of re-put this in a new context and like pour it out, which I think is important in terms of like education and going out with new references, but also sometimes it's like a little bit troubling when that's sort of prioritized opposed to like putting new stuff out there. Just as sort of the general thing. So I see you have like a lot of new designs. I'm just sort of speaking to sort of like the general trend, especially with like the Instagram culture where it's like a positive feedback cycle of like, this person's gonna do this design which is reference, so I'm gonna do that design too because I saw them doing it, and so on and such forth.
I'm just gonna like answer it how I see the question as. You know, when I started, I was like, I saw myself as like a Dadaist. So you know, with the Duchamp reference, like that was like sort of like all the things that I did was like so rebellious, and with that, I was, you know, like the Sugarland, like these are all like every single reference that I do is more of percentile study. Like, I never actually said this, but the Sugarland t-shirt, I did this because Texas was one of the highest selling merch t-shirts that you could sell from any school. And that color was the highest like color that people react to. So I created a Sugarland t-shirt that was in Texas that references to the point of like the cigarette reference, but it's like cigarette, Texas school, and Sugarland. All of that was a study that I knew was going to be effective. So like nothing just lands on clothes just because. Everything that I do is all because like, if I was a boxer, I'm Mayweather. I'm doing it for points, you know, and I know how to do it in style. So, Jesus Christ, that came heavy. Yeah.
Sammy?
I have a question. So you spoke about developing a women's wear line, and I was wondering for the women's wear, what's going to make it women's wear? Is it going to be a tighter fit? Is it going to emphasize female anatomy? Like, what's going to distinguish it from menswear in terms of it being a streetwear brand? And I think of that as generally being pretty unisex.
You know, again, I was talking about athleisure as being like a big thing for women now, and how we could propose a new like wardrobe for women. But there's so much already. You know, one of the things I was talking about in this previous interview I did was I wanted to give women, I wanted to scratch the name of like boyfriend jeans for women. You know, like I think if we're really talking like empowering women, like I don't want, like if you look now in Barney's, you guys all shop at Barney's in some way. When you go to the Barney's, whatever it is, like you see that the men's floor is the most like busy floor ever, and women's is just dying. And I think if we're really talking about like empowering women, I want to give women their wardrobe back. You know, it's like I love when a woman gets ready and looks lovely. You know, and I think it's like it's a beautiful thing, and I wanted to give them like all the power in the world that it's their clothes. And you know, with the knowledge that Madison has from Marquesa as well, we're going to use, you know, in my previous knowledge.
So it's more so you find the woman's silhouette in the styling of the pieces that we're going to be presenting.
And I don't want to give like this connotation of like, oh, you woke up in your boyfriend's clothes sort of look, you know. It's like I want the woman to have their wardrobe, yeah. And I wish I could show you.
When is it coming out?
June, so we're gonna do a show in June. It's our first show. It's gonna be a big one. So,
In the back.
Hi. Since the fashion industry is one of the
I can't even show.
industries, I was wondering how sustainable your manufacturing process is, and if you've ever thought about making a collection that's sustainable.
The eco fashion question.
I mean, as far as sustainability with us, we stand in like repurposing our garments. We're still yet to figure out a more efficient technique with our washing, because I do understand that we use a lot of water when we do, you know, our natural kind of dyes and all of that. But you know, so much of our products is all literally like repurposed. Like I don't think we produce anything that's overstock. So you know, and our sell-through is incredible right now. So nothing really is hurting. But I think when the problem does arrive, I think we have sort of a solution to it, which is similar to what we've been doing. It's just uh, reinstating the silhouettes that we provided from the previous season and combining that with the new proposal. So
eco through the design.
through the design, eco through the design, because I think it's great to have a company that's like eco driven, but I don't think I want it to be kind of a hidden coin in a garment that you just found that it's like, oh, it's sustainable, rather than being that as the focus.
Just
This is kind of based on that previous question about your women's line. You mentioned that you developed it because you want to empower women and using their the boyfriend jeans. Do you think that any things in your women's line are things that maybe men would wear? I'm maybe talking in the context of
That's funny because when we were designing, so in my office, we have this wall of men's and women's. But I was telling her it's funny because I'm actually trying to propose women's wear to men's wear, and in a weird way. I'm trying to give this this confidence to men that
challenging toxic masculinity. It's empowering women.
absolutely. So now men are before not what is this, not so long ago men didn't even want to wear pink, But now that I can see dudes in pink, and to me that's telling of our time that men are more susceptible to new silhouettes, and women now are wearing a bunch of hoodies. So that's why we thank you for wearing our hoodie. That's amazing. But yeah, what?
Yeah. Okay.
I keep
Not
seeing
in my
your
class,
face,
not
man.
in my class.
I'm I keep seeing your face, but all right.
So I'm not in Annenberg. I'm in the design school here, and as an aspiring designer, something that I struggle with a lot is looking at a product or a project and saying this is done, this is my final draft, and I'm ready to hand this in. And you were talking about deadlines, and I'm sure there's been pieces that you've had to hand in or submit that you don't feel you're completely done with. So I guess my question is, as a designer, when do you look at a hoodie, a pair of pants, a product that you've made and say, this is it, this is where I'm stopping, this is where I'm finished?
I think that's what makes us designers. You're just never there. You're the key point to why I think I did this talk with Virgil, and I found an answer through that, and I was telling how I designed to make existing products better. So to me, it's there's never a final answer to that. I think we find different opinions with our pant, the way t-shirt is worn. It's a never-ending thing. I think you should always aspire to you can honestly turn in a blank paper and you can say that's your piece, But if you find that,
It's very Duchamp.
it's Duchamp in some way. Right? That's so bad. I'm trained like that.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I think that also speaks to the collaboration.
Yeah, the collaboration.
Right.
So I open a dialogue with them, and so much of it is jokes, literally jokes. We just today I want to make a macaroni T-shirt. Something I don't know.
Okay. Yes, Gabby.
I'm just kind of curious, how you met with individual members of your team, and how you decided that they were the perfect fit. Was there an interview process?
Scott does. What does
I guess when we were just building the team, one thing I like to look for is, I don't know, I try and base off just Rhude's background is looking for people that just didn't have the opportunities, but they show potential. And just when I review people's resumes, I think it's great. You have the long list of everything you've ever done, but what really separates you is when I meet you in person. If you can just have a normal conversation and just understand it's not all about talking about your accolades 24/7. We're all here to do the same thing, and it's just understanding if you can mesh with the people here, because we're all a team. And if your personality is showing you want to be a part of the team, you don't want to just do your own thing, and you're here to elevate this brand, then that's where I see potential in you to work at Rhude.
Did that answer it?
I hope.
So there's obviously a link between like fashion, architecture, interior design, these arts, and I was curious if you thought you saw Rhude in the future moving not necessarily past fashion, but onto also other things such as furniture, architecture.
June.
Jan, Justine.
Yeah, kind of similar to that. You talked about like film and game fair and stuff. So I was just wondering if like those other creative ventures like inform your fashion design process at all, or like just I guess what are your primary inspirations?
Yeah, so again, I find answers through the process, but what I found happening with this is I'm actually developing like two separate entities now. Like Rhude is rising and myself as an artist is rising. So, when we do these different I'm just gonna talk. Like when we do these like different collaborations, like we're able to offer either Rhude or myself as a service, and as far as myself as a brand, like I find that like objects and fine art has been an answer for me, and through like the studies that I'm doing, I'm gaining like inspiration for the company.
And it's mainly self-study.
Self-study.
Right, 'cause did you take an art history class ever? Or?
I did. I went to like Pierce College, guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know what that is. It's
Yeah.
like a community college.
Yeah.
I took I just needed this one topic on, again, Dada and Duchamp when I was younger, and then I walked away right after.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then otherwise you just look.
It's all self-study. Yeah, self-study.
So the question for George. What are your feelings on, potentially with like Fear of God, kind of did like the collection with Paxson, kind of something like more, I guess, accessible for like high schoolers and like college students. So what are your feelings on making kind of like an affordable like sub-brand? Does it like diminish the integrity of like the existing like mainline? And also for George, like as a music agent, obviously there's like a cross-pollination of like music and fashion, like those two industries are just like intertwined. So like what did you see in Rhude that differed from other brands, and what stuck out to you when you decided to join on project?
Who do you want to hear from first? George?
George can go first.
You want to flex that one time? You want to flex that one thing?
Okay, so music. I think my biggest gift has been intuition, and it's how we got connected. Actually, it's an artist that I was a friend with named Miguel. I don't know if you guys know who Miguel is. So Miguel, little artist. So I was actually representing an artist at the time. He invited her on the road to tour with him. At this dinner, he set me next to Rhuigi, and the dots just connected. I saw what he was doing, I believed in it, and that's when, I decided, like, you know what? At that time, maybe there's something that I should be involved with to help him based on, like, kind of my background with music and structuring businesses and companies, and that's kind of how it all came together. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's kind of.
You should flex that.
Which one? Oh, so with intuition, one of my first brands that I invested in. Okay, let's start from the beginning. With music, I wrote a song once.
Boom. I'm sexy and I know it. George wrote I'm sexy and I know it.
I wrote the song I'm sexy and I know it.
Bro, that's like, to me, that's like ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I love it. That's like, that's that massive. Like, I see little kids singing that. To me, you change the world. That's like, if we're talking about accessibility to people, that's just
that's the biggest communication, right?
Yeah.
Communication is really see it.
We should have played it.
So I came up with that song. That song was very profitable. It gave me the opportunity to actually, for once in my life, do what I like to do best, and that's just create and be around creatives. Once I did that song, I was able to like invest in things I believed in. The first company I believed in was this brand called Fear of God, which was funny that you brought that up.
So I was like, well, we got best of both worlds.
Jerry was someone, Jerry Lorenzo, I don't know if you guys know who that is. So Jerry Lorenzo was somebody that in LA used to do nightclubs. And I used to bring my artists to his nightclubs to, perform or just be there. So I was able to use some of the section I know of money to invest in that brand. And then when Rhuigi's brand started, I was like, you know what? I have some more cash laying around. Let me invest in his brand. And it just, also starting with Rhuigi, he noticed that I had the ability to also lend some ideas that could help Rhude. So it just became this perfect storm, this situation. And it was just based on my intuition and the direction I felt like I needed to go. And from that, I just, Scott was someone that did his research on me and called me out of the blue one day and said, hey, you know what? Like, I want to work with you. And we were in music together. And he was on tour with artists that, we've had, when you're doing music, artists tend to have a lot of problems. So, there's been days where Scott's called me like, man, can you send me home, bro? Like, I just want to come home. And it evolved into like, now Scott is doing the hiring for Rhude. He's actually head of operations. And it's like, he's pretty much the heartbeat of this company. And it started from like the music connection. It's weird, right? It just all kind of fell onto one timeline. So, I don't know if that.
Oh, sick. That's amazing. Yeah. Now, as far as like accessibility, I mean, we are working with, am I allowed to say this? Oh yeah, I'm allowed. Sorry. I'm working with a sportswear brand to like bring that to life, but also like a skate brand to bring that to life. And unnamed, So I think as I go about with this, it's all boils down to global reach. I think again we're trying to propose luxury, but it boils down to like what kind of ship are you taking it to get to there? And there's only so very few ships that have the means to be able to communicate globally. And what I found within Rhude is like I'm starting to understand that our purpose is kind of bringing this. And I hate to put it in like a philanthropic perspective, but like it's to bring light into like global problems that I'm actually concerned with, and I'm taking that approach in design to bring global change rather than just like proposing a new T-shirt. To me, I think a product reaches the masses in different perspectives, and I think you can bring change through product. Selling a person a really cool sneaker isn't like gonna change the world. And I think not in a Tom's way where you're like force feeding like donation. I think it's more so awareness, because then if I could be the spark, I'm sure a wildfire can start into the awareness.
I actually think that's a great ending point, partly because of time, but also because it's so inspiring. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for all the random people that came. This has never happened to me before, so obviously you're a star. Yeah.
Thank you so much.